Welcome to the Bank Marketing Show, the podcast that engages and informs you for success in today's marketplace. It's the show that will make you a better marketer with trends, tactics, and inspiration from experts and industry leaders. If you're wanting to impact your personal success and position your bank as the best choice in your market, you're in the right place. Now let's dive into today's show with your hosts, Chris and Dan.
Welcome to another episode, everyone. Glad to have you guys with us today. If you haven't yet, join the lots of other folks that we have that are subscribing to the show on whatever platform that you are on today. And Dan, I do a bad job of you and I reminding our listeners to do that. So there we go. I checked that box right up front, right?
Yeah, I always hear the YouTube videos that my kids watch, the kind of the brain rot they call it, and so it's like and subscribe. Like it's very aggressive.
Right.
So we'll try to keep it a little more subtle. But
there you go. There you go. We just went from never mentioning it to at least mentioning it on the front end. So, well, man, Dan, I'm excited about our show and our really great guest with us today. So, Brent, super glad to have you, and Dan, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, welcome, Brent. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So Brent and I, Brent is a fellow St. Louisan and worked on we had a mutual client that Brent just launched a great website for. And, Brent is the CEO of Matchbox Design Group, like I said, here in St. Louis, focusing on websites and marketing. And we've just had some great conversations over the last couple of weeks and thought we've touched on websites a little on this show, but it's been a long time, and thought it'd be great for all of you listening to have a kind of deep dive into why banks should care more about their websites than a lot of them do.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Yeah, appreciate it.
Well, let's start. Tell us a little about your more about what your company does, and what kind of websites you build, and we'll kind of get into the rest from there.
Well, cool. Well, thank you. You had a great encapsulation. And I will say that, websites as well as SEO has been our focus for quite a while. We actually started the agency back in, and I say we because it was myself and a business partner, Cullen Whitmore. But we started this back in 2006. So a long time ago, a lot different internet and website landscape back then.
Just a little bit.
Just changed just slightly, and we were doing stuff in HTML and Dreamweaver, and this goes way back. But we've kept our focus on being sort of digitally first, and now we're heavily targeting banks and credit unions. We just, as you mentioned, Dan, had a great launch for a website for Midwest Bank Center. They were a fantastic client to do some work for, and it was great to bring about a big change in their web marketing. So that's been a lot of fun. But yeah, we have a team of 16 people. We have everything from designers, developers, and also people in digital marketing, basically digital strategists doing the SEO work on our team. So definitely a great team helping out with all these sort of services that hopefully people could use to improve their website or digital marketing.
Very cool. Well, Brent, what a lot of what my team, your team and mine are very comparable in size and all of that, and a lot of what our team does in recurring and relationship services around digital and traditional and design and SEO and social, all the things obviously are driving traffic, right? Mm-hmm. Sure, we want to drive traffic into lobbies, but we're primarily driving traffic into web. So, and Dan and I have talked about this before. I'm blown away at a bank that will spend $1.7 million on building a new branch. Mm-hmm. And then you talk about an investment in a new website that's going to have whatever. I don't know what the multiplier is, but 20 times the traffic, 50 times the traffic of a lobby. And they kind of balk at that. And I think don't really understand the importance of the investment in their website. So kind of lead us off with your perspective on that. I mean, why is it that banks should invest, and it's not just financially, but invest the time, the energy, all the things into a website?
Yeah, you set it up really well, and I will say it's funny as you look at that kind of investment, $1.7 million. That's a lot of money, and then you have to have everybody there who's constantly, staffing it, running it, make sure they're talking to the customers, and then everything is getting carried off, sort of well. And you're right, that's a big orchestration, and essentially your website can be that digital branch. It's always on whenever anybody wants to go there. And it can be a great sort of reflection, not only of, sort of like a forward sales leaning and getting new account openings, and but it can also be a great reflection of your brand in general. This is an awesome place to not just welcome people sort of into the fold to open accounts, get loans. It's a place to show what are the things that you're doing in the community. Why does your bank really mean a lot to the community? So I see it as doing so much, not just sort of like being an always on sort of branch, but doing so much more too.
Yeah. And I think Chris, you kind of touched on time too, which is something that a lot of banks don't think about, right? So it's the investment of, money and just realizing the what it goes to, but it takes a lot of time, right? Like, and all of our teams help with that. But it kind of plays into this, the mindset of the bank going into it. So you mentioned Midwest Bank Center, our mutual client, and they've got just a great mindset of like everything they do, they're kind of the bank's persona is breathed, into it. And they talk about reinvestment in the community and all these other things. We had Heidi on this show a year and a half ago or so. Go back and listen to that episode. But she talked a lot about just how they approach things. And I think it's the banks that are willing to invest the money and the time that come out with a more successful product. So like the banks that you work with, Brent, like how do you see their like that marketing mindset, right? What are they usually focused on, right? As opposed to like a bank that just needs the site.
Yeah. With a marketing, I think that's a good call out, and shout out to Heidi too. She's fantastic, a great marketer and just, great to work with. I feel like when you have that marketing mindset, you can make your site do more. And so essentially like the thought that it's just like a brochure, or hey, it's there to have our rates, or hey, it's there just to house simple information. Really, it's that sort of asset is unfortunately in that case kind of being under leveraged. There's so much that your bank can do, and I know I was just talking about housing content, talking about the community activity, but actually thinking about it, getting leads, having a funnel, making sure that you're addressing all the things that you could inform a customer on throughout the website. It can do so much for you. So I feel like a good website is really, honestly, it's just a tool, but you do need to commit time to it, not only obviously in the practice of building it, but then leveraging the tool. There's a lot of data that comes off of that site, looking at your analytics, understanding the performance of the pages, making sure that your forms and stuff are working correctly. And then past that, I would say that there's other tools that layer on top of a website, and I'm thinking of products that and layer on top of core tools as well, like Mantle, making sure the processes are easy in order to make sure that people can do the things that they need to within the site in as few of clicks as possible. Yeah, and that's where menus, all sorts of stuff really matters.
What is that? There's a statistic there that I can't think of every click in a conversion funnel decreases your conversions by some 5-10% or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like, and then especially for banks where you've got your website, you've got, hooks to online banking, to a flow like Mantle, to a form, and then it's different for retail versus commercial. Like you've got, all these different places people can go. So it's no easy task to think through those flows and understand them.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that the approach that we take is looking at a content structure first. So instead of going to write what is the pretty picture, really like from a top down approach, looking at the sitemap, understanding all those sort of top performing pages or pages that you either want or need to be top performing pages, and then looking at the verticals of content that go below that. That is the core of a website, because then you can design a better menu system around it. You can make sure that the high priority pages have good CTAs that can get you there. Essentially just really thinking about the content and the structure of a site, almost like you'd plan out, putting materials around a bank. If you were going to, have brochures about opening an account, you wouldn't hide them behind the desk. You'd want to put them front and center. And so that's where it's just, it's a similar mentality in the physical world. It's just something that, it really needs thought and concerted effort when it comes to the digital presence.
Just a little anecdote, but I worked with a bank a few years ago on their just sort of optimizing their site, and it was, they had the general framework of stuff, but then the wording they were using was like the banker language. And so instead of like mortgages, it said residential lending. And I said, like, who do you know, what consumer do you know goes to Google and types, I need to buy a house, I'm going to search for residential lending. And, just it's that mindset shift.
Yeah.
The site is right. It's, somebody wouldn't walk in your branch. If somebody walked in your branch, you wouldn't say, "Can I interest you in a residential lending today?" It's like, so just wrapping your head around what the website serves. But I think, for some banks that kind of the technology wall goes up. And like, well, I don't know anything about the technology. So we're just going to do this, not invest in it. So
yeah, we had one that insisted in their menu to have depository accounts, loan account. I'm going, no, just checking, savings. Let's talk to your identify your average consumer and talk at that level. That's a great point there, Dan.
Those are, I would say that those are so important. And oh my God, the common nomenclature, this extends way outside of like banking and credit unions. This extends to like everybody. And the thing is, like, when somebody comes to a website, you don't want them to have to relearn how to use the web, of like, so what do they mean by that menu title? And sometimes people want to be, interesting or funny, or like, hey, we're going to, put this quirky title with it, or, oh, this seems more endearing. And you're like, no, make it simple, make it straightforward. And we have this, like, I have this thing, a story that I tell that goes like way back to us doing some work for SLU Hospital. And it was us building a website, and they were talking about, atrial fibrillation. I hope I'm getting that term correct. I'm not a doctor. Don't. But, and we were just like, is that like a heart attack? And they're like, yeah. I was like, well, let's just say heart attack. Yeah. If anybody is looking up things on the internet, they are not doctors. So you just have to speak to people like you would speak to anybody else.
There you go. And I love your content and process first approach, Brent. That's really a cool way to do it. It's like, okay, we want you to build a house for us. Okay, well, before we pick the color of the shutters on the front porch, is this a 4-bedroom? How many slots in the garage? Where's the, let's, what is it internally? What does it need to do? Who does it need to serve? And how is it going to serve? Then we'll put the lipstick on it, as we go. Of course, the design is important, but I love that. And so to that point, Brennan, you talked around this, as you've mentioned, functionalities. What do you feel like are some of the key problems that it solves? And as the three of us were just alluding to, it needs to be answered from the consumer and the customer's perspective, not the bank's perspective.
Yep.
I mean, yes, it's going to solve problems for the bank. In ways that all bankers understand. Your deposits flow easier, you get applications easier, do all that. But from the consumer's perspective, what are some of the key things that you think that are problems that a website should solve?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. And I feel like this is something where we changed our process internally probably about 10 years ago in order to, start to look at that, sort of content first mentality. And honestly, when you start addressing content in that way, you kind of mentioned, like what kind of problems does that solve, or ask that kind of question. And I feel like as you look at that content structure more holistically in a sitemap, you are looking at the like, what are the stories we need to tell? What's the information we need to get across to those potential customers? But it solves so many things actually for the rest of the website design and development process that is helpful for efficiency and getting down to the right product. Because if I would say the first step is definitely always going to be that sitemap, but the next step in our process is actually a content map. And so it's kind of an expansion of the sitemap in and of itself. We look at every single block or whatever, you want to call it, modular element, piece that's going to be on a page. And then we'll do that for every single template type and sometimes every even, like page that is really key to the site. And what's helpful about that is, as opposed to, and as I mentioned, like getting into the process and solving problems for later, you aren't designing something that you don't have the content for, or you aren't trying to solve a solution with design that you don't need to. There's a lot of times where I feel like if you don't do the content first sort of thing, you get into, all right, we're going to transfer all the content from the old site, or, we, need to move all of this content, when maybe you don't. Maybe there's a lot of, extra additional pages that are on the site that maybe you just want to trim and they aren't necessary, or you consolidate them. So, I think it's a great thing to start with the content so that you keep focused on exactly what you were saying of like, what is important to your customer, what is important to have on the site, and then dealing with, okay, what else do we need to maybe reconcile after we deal with the important stuff first?
Love that. Streamlining and intentionality.
Absolutely.
Really cool.
Cool.
Yeah. I worked with a bank that had, 3 or 4 pages dedicated to merchant services and treasure, like all that side. And they're like, talking to them, I was like, well, how big of a part of your business is this? They're like, oh, we don't sell a lot of those, like, but we want it on there. I'm like, okay, well, why don't we have like a small business solutions page? You're like, think about the from the customer perspective of like same things like residential lending. What is the customer searching for? Does somebody sit out and go, we really need merchant services? Or are they just looking for like help figuring out what they need? And if you're going to like, you're selling to big commercial clients, they know they need that. They know what they need, but this bank was not. If you really think about what those problems are, but a lot of banks get caught in that mindset of we want to be everything to everybody. And it, makes everything a little bit more muted, a little bit more generic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely. That is so true. From a UX perspective, I will say that it also is so important. I've definitely seen banks and credit unions that will have like tri-stacked menus, and like it's like, oh, here's the login and account and other functions, here's our actual main menu, here's a banner bar, here's another couple options, and it is like a UX nightmare. And you just think about the people who come to the site and they're like, oh my god, where do I click, what do I go to? So yeah, exactly, Dan, like you throw everything at it when you want to be everything to everybody loses focus, and unfortunately it just doesn't do the service it needs to for the customer.
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to talk about the website, the big elephant in the room of websites, and that's the CMS that most cores try to sell banks. I don't want to single anybody out, but all the major cores kind of have their own website offering, and comes with a CMS. And I've worked with several different ones, and often it's like as a digital marketer, like it's how help the bank kind of set up a landing page or change those things. I've seen how these cores operate versus a custom site. So I'd love to get into that a little bit. What's kind of your take on what you've seen from these content management systems that the cores put out?
Yeah. Oh, wow. And I don't want to be disparaging, because at the end of the day, these cores are something that these banks need. They, rely on them. Mm-hmm. They provide a great internal service for all the, sort of back end, functionality. So but when it comes to CMS, we were just talking about trying to be everything to everybody. And I think that's where, sites that are designed to be sites as opposed to something that's just a bolt on from another system, I feel like that's where you can start being more articulate about the user experience, not only on the front end, but on the back end. And as we talk about that marketing mindset, for those banks and credit unions that want to actually leverage their site, I think that's the exact point to where if you don't have a good editing experience at the back end of your website, it is going to be deleterious to people wanting to update and edit it. It's going to be harder for the marketing team to leverage and use that tool. So basically, having something like we build in WordPress, that's just our CMS of choice. And definitely, we don't have to dig into it, but I'm sure we can. But all the, questions of is it secure? Is it, we always get those questions, but we've built, plenty of sites. Chris, I know you just told me, the other day that you build plenty of sites on WordPress and it's safe and secure and haven't had any problems. I'm going to knock on wood just in case, though.
Right.
Yeah. But
we've had dozens of bank clients on that CMS for years. So I even mentioned to you the story. It's not anymore, I don't believe, but I mean, years ago, we looked it up and Bank of America's website was a WordPress site. So, I mean, it's if you can't use that as an example in a community bank or small credit union, can't look at that as an example, then
Yeah, so I think you said it was WordPress up till 4 or 5 years ago, some much more recent than you'd think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like WordPress is a great CMS, and now in newer iterations of it, even natively, which we're focused on trying to build a good native experience for speed, for updatability. But it's all drag and drop. It's so easy to use, and especially if you're trying to make landing pages, make updates to content, it's way better than things I've seen. And again, I don't want to be disparaging to those platforms or the CMSs they provide, but I will say that it's much nicer to have something more flexible, robust, and customizable for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think I think there's a good use case for the core CMS, right? For some banks, for smaller banks, if you're doing a conversion, often they'll try to kind of throw it in or make it kind of a too good to refuse type of offer. Small banks that are not growing, that are just trying to kind of maintain their current client base, it can be fine, right? But there's so much more you can do outside of it, and so not only the editing, but so a lot of the things you were talking about, like connections to Mantle and these other third-party tools that are just harder.
Mm-hmm.
Can you what have you seen from limitations of that from the core CMSs, versus what you do?
Yeah, making something extensible is challenging because you have to have it, by nature, it has to be able to, be pretty flexible and plug into a whole bunch of things. But it extends down to the content editing too. And so WordPress has been out as a CMS and refined and honed over, I think it came out in 06, 08. Oh no, I'm going to be called out on this for not knowing when it actually came out. But it's been out for a long, long time as a CMS, and it has a wonderful community built around it. There's also 45% of the web, the last time that I checked, that's actually using WordPress as a CMS. That's crazy. That is if you think about how vast the entire web is, and that
I heard something like 73 million websites or something. Yeah. Something just
It's crazy. It's immense. And what that does is that just imagine, testing against all of these different conditions and being able to find out the potential security loopholes. That is what WordPress is at its core, of an open source CMS that has, their sort of product theoretically in a whole bunch of different, cases and conditions. Now, granted, there's things that modify that, like plugins and all sorts of other stuff. But at the same time, they get security security feedback and information from millions of websites and data points. And then that way they're able to continuously improve their ecosystem and environment. So that's why I feel like as far as security goes, it has the best opportunity for being more secure because it has so many people constantly utilizing the platform, and then really great developers that are constantly looking at those things and trying to improve them.
Well, I think security-wise too, like the WordPress parts of the bank website are not the same as the online banking parts, where you're seeing, the customers pulling their transactions, their super, super sensitive data. That's an online banking, right? Yeah. The WordPress gets you to there. And so, on the WordPress side, you still got to worry about we don't want anybody hacking us or spoofing the site and getting people's logins. There's a lot to still worry about. But one of the things I've educated a lot of banks on is just what they think of the whole thing as the website, right? And it is kind of like the web presence of the bank, but there's the WordPress piece, there's online banking, there's the flows, third-party flows like Mantle, and they're all different. They're hosted in different places, and you've got to worry about the security of all of it, but it's different security things you're thinking about in each place.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's such a good point because thinking about them being together is, I think, the thing that makes it seem like, oh my gosh, well, if I store my password on here, they're going to have access to, all this other stuff. Yes, at its core, it's tough that, if somebody did, hack a website, they would get into the CMS. But that, to your point exactly, is that's not your online banking platform.
Yeah, they're not in your core.
Yeah, exactly.
They're on the website, and they can do a lot of damage on the website, but it's different than being, getting access to the core.
And so much of that has to do with the hosting and all of the other things too. So it's not just the website itself. It's also what kind of locks are we using on the doors, so to speak. And, the hosting environment and lots of other factors that also have to be part of the consideration, right?
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
cool.
Brent, parts of what you've alluded to as well. So let's say a listener of ours that is a banker or a credit union leader or C-suite or marketing folks, and so they're in as far as, okay, we've got a level of a growth mindset, either a significant, obvious one, or at least we don't want to lose business, because in my opinion, sitting still is losing business in today's business environments. So if someone has that mindset, is okay, we understand that, and so that there are benefits to a custom site, as opposed to a prefabbed house versus a custom built house. Again, I keep using that as an analogy, but to me, it's a very fitting analogy. So, what is it that you can do in a custom site? Some of the benefits of that really make that a worthwhile investment in money, investment in time and effort, and going through the kind of processes that you're describing for a custom site.
Oh, okay. Wow. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I have enough time to go through.
A couple of highlights.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But I'm excited to speak to that because the first thing that we did in approaching the Midwest Bank Center site, which is, a very custom site, we started with a discovery process. That discovery process gave us a chance to start the relationship, dig into what the needs were, dig into what the challenges were, and then come back with a solution and say, this is how we'd like to solve it. What's really nice about that is jumping right in, is great. With just about any project, there's ways to solve challenges every single time, that are common problems, whether that be, user experience, front end, back end, whether that be, bad menu structures that, we can help impart change on. But by doing that discovery, it gives us the ability, the opportunity to look into the future for the site before we start anything. And we can lay better groundwork that way and say, hey, this is what we're trying to work towards as a goal, and how do we get there? We got a chance to sort of come up with additional tools and elements that would make the site more robust and serve the customers better over time. We've talked about tools for, finding a loan, and things that are simple processes that you'd think should be easily navigable through a menu system, but maybe that's something where you can develop a quiz. Is that something where you usher somebody into the right area of a site through through just offering them simple questions. And it's thinking about that user experience journey that can help get you to a better product, and definitely something that you're not going to get in just a core CMS. That's where it's fun to think about all the different elements, calculators, all sorts of things that can build up to what a custom site is. But I think one of maybe the main thing is like building up your brand through these individual, sort of page structures. I mentioned the site map, the content map. As you look at your pages, they are telling a story to every single user that comes on the site. And the more that you can articulate that through a custom site, not just something that's like, kind of drop text in a box, this will let you think about your CMSs, your CTAs more effectively, to where, let's say that you are telling a story about, here's your loan product, here's why you should think about it, here's other people in the community that use us, here's great stories, now here's the CTA. That is a much different experience than just drop content in a box. It will help people get to the right places faster and be a better representation of your brand in general.
You just described a digital reflection of the kind of experience that banks and credit unions want to give when someone walks in the lobby. You don't want to walk in the lobby and then I can't even tell where to go. Who can help me? Where to, and just, or either overwhelming or totally underwhelming experience in the physical sense of a lobby. So what you're describing, Brent, sounds like the digital experience of that being a part of the personality and the brand and the ease of use that the customer feels emotionally, even on a website.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you made that correlation, because I feel like no bank would go to an architect to design their next branch and be like, just do whatever. Or I'll take that box.
I don't like that shade of blue.
Yeah.
You're looking at the whole.
Just stick a desk over there. It doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned at the top here, spending 1.7 million on articulating every detail of that branch, and then get to your website and just who cares? That's where it can be such an important reflection of the brand. So I'm so glad you made that correlation.
Well said. Yeah, cool. Man. Great stuff. It kind of sounds like we're trying to talk our listeners into, a better understanding of the value and importance and reasoning behind the investment in a website. And truth be told, we really are, because that's what serves them best. And, but Brent, Dan and I talk about it all the time about for community banks, differentiation is crucial. It's a crucial part of marketing, and all the things that kind of touch that. And what better way to do that than, the place that all of your customers at some point or another are coming. And I would venture a guess, probably every single one of, or very close to, potential customers. Mm-hmm. So they're all coming there. Mm-hmm. And other members of your community and all that. And even with some of the things that you mentioned, sometimes the more resourceful that it is, the more people that are coming there, or the more often that they're returning there, and those types of things. So there's such golden opportunity here just through web, because it's literally the window to the world to which, your audiences, current customers and potential ones, whether it's consumer or business or whatever, they're coming there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The amount of traffic that your website takes, just, if you thought about it in terms of if a branch got that, it would be impossible. Need
a bigger parking lot.
Yeah. and I'm sure a branch would love that. But, that's another, I'm glad you made that correlation too, because if you think about the amount of people you can get in front of with, whether that be the cross-selling opportunities that, maybe you get the opportunity at the branch, maybe you don't. But, you're right that if somebody's coming there for like, their online banking and they're hitting that site, just continuously, that is a wonderful front door and opportunity to say, hey, look at some of these other things that we have going on. Or just that, again, the expression of the brand about look at the great things that we're doing in the community. Come to our latest education event. Oh, we're supporting this nonprofit, this, in the community here. So it's a great way to start leveraging your marketing through the idea that if you were going to, be able to have a greeter at the front door of your branch and say, hey, how's it going? Do you have any questions? We've got this new, promo. It should be welcoming. It should bring people in just like a branch does. Yeah. And I know that, yes, we are kind of, in a sense, trying to, let people know what a better website, can do. But it's something that I love getting excited about it only because like you do think about sometimes, unfortunately, how underleveraged they are and how much it can do for somebody. And, and it does come down to, that marketing mindset. If you feel like we're not going to do anything with it or, maybe it doesn't matter. That's the mindset you have. And like, there's no reason to like, say if that's the way you think about it, then fine, go about it that way. But I think opening the doors to the possibilities or reframing how people might think about a site it is helpful in order to say that it doesn't just have to be something, static or boring or, something that is set it and forget it. It's definitely an active piece of the marketing puzzle, and leveraging it better can help you just perform better as an organization.
Well said.
I'm just thinking that too. Actually, that you nailed it. You nailed it. Yeah. That's the whole crux and point of this episode, is to try to relay that mindset that you just described. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we can't let you get out of here without our lightning round questions.
Man.
Got to get to know you better.
All right. I'm up for this.
All right. Well, share a personal best and a business best.
Personal best, I would say that is actually our one thing that I feel really good about. We actually just reached out to like Heidi, as we were talking about her, for a testimonial, and during us filming it, because it was actually a video testimonial, she said so many nice things about us, and it was very heartwarming. And sometimes I get really uncomfortable when people like say nice things. They're like, "Oh, that was great," and I'm like, tending to like just kind of shirk away from it. But hearing a customer talk about the experience they have with us and saying so many nice things, honestly, that was a personal best for me, because she did say something nice about me. Again, I feel weird about taking compliments, but that was very, very nice of her to be able to do that. And then business best, I will say, having that Midwest Bank Center site under our belt is, in my opinion, one of the coolest recent projects that we have, because the experience back and forth with their team, being able to get them inside the CMS early, helping figure out this big, massive like shift in content transfer was great. One of the nicest things they had a compliment back on was that was the smoothest launch we've ever had. And I'm like, these are marketers that are seasoned. They've seen a lot. They've probably done a lot of web transitions, and to me, that was a big highlight.
Awesome. And we'll link out to the Midwest Bank Center site in the show notes here, so everybody can take a look at what we've been talking about through here.
Yeah, great job.
How about a favorite book or other resource?
I was just talking about Smart Brevity, and it actually has 3 different authors. So I guess I'll leave that up. Anyway, it should be really, really easy to find. But I would absolutely encourage anybody who is not just banks and credit unions, but in any business, to read Smart Brevity. And it's because as marketers, as communicators, we're talking to people all the time. And sometimes we are challenged to condense things into bite-sized nuggets. But Smart Brevity is fantastic at kind of giving you a framework or an outline of how to communicate better and faster. They encourage 6 word headlines. And that's even for like your emails that you might send out to people. Don't make it any longer than that. And obviously, if you can make it shorter, but make it say the thing that you need to and do it in as few of words as possible. The other thing that they really tell you is bulletize more things as you send them over. If you send people big chunks of copy, they're inclined to either skim it, at best, or on the other side, not read it at all. So the more that you can give bold titles, actual hierarchy, structure to whatever you're sending to somebody, that will essentially make your communication with them, whoever it is, whether that be a lot of people or just one person, it'll make it more effective. So I highly encourage Smart Brevity. It's a great book.
I haven't read that yet. Well, I'll order that as soon as we get off the episode here.
Yeah. I love getting book recommendations. Yeah. And seriously, somebody says something, they're like, I love this book. I'm like, I'm going to read it now.
Great. Well, what's the most impactful piece of advice you've ever gotten?
This one is tough because I feel very fortunate to have gotten a lot of different, pieces of advice from, mentors, people in the field, sage advice from just great people that I know. But there's one thing from there was like an actual metal statue or like little sculpture piece or whatever it was, and it was on my dad's desk, and it was 3 words, and it says, "Do it now." And I that might be challenging for some people to be able to, actually activate and do something, immediately. Sometimes you're, busy, fraught with all the things in your daily life. But I loved that simplicity where it was just sort of instructing you instead of thinking about it, instead of mulling it over. It was really to just jump in and do it. And so I'll never forget visually this like bronze statue of saying that in my mind. And definitely it was something that was pretty heavy too. So it had heft and weight to it. Maybe that's why it all sunk in like that. But do it now was just, it's a great thing. Don't procrastinate. Jump in. Do it.
I was just about to say that's really hard for us recovering procrastinators.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's like, it's maybe it's a little procrastination, but it's a lot of, I overanalyze stuff. And, it's always better to just do something and have it be the wrong thing and then do the next thing is often faster than just hemming and hawing of what you're going to do, which is where I find myself a lot. So that's great.
Yeah, thank you. I will say I fall prey to, maybe sometimes overanalyzing things, looking at it, but I think you just said it of like, just throwing it out there. And if it is the wrong thing, usually people are nice and, they'll give you feedback, they'll correct, you'll learn as you go. So, I mean, like, exactly. Most times, and I feel like this is like not always true, but it's one of those things that if you put something out there, you'll get to that end goal quicker, and it will usually be better than doing nothing. And it's kind of like we say about like responses. Sometimes just saying something is better than saying nothing. Clients hate waiting on being like, hey, what's going on? So try to get back to them as soon as possible. And even if you don't have a lot to say, simple things are great to just put out there to make sure that you aren't kind of ghosting them. So do it now. Just it applies in so many different ways, but it's something I still live by.
Well, flip that around. Like, what's the advice you always give your team or your clients?
Honestly, this is one of those things that we have a lot of trust in our team and want them to push that boundary of moving things forward on our behalf as much as we can. So honestly, trying to almost instill that same sort of mentality of, go ahead and put it out there. We are there to basically trust as leaders and make sure that people have the confidence that whatever decision that they're making is okay to move forward with. We've hired, in our opinion, the foremost experts, people that are just incredible at what they do. And really as leaders, we just want to make sure that, they know that they're more than able to act on, not only our behalf, the company's behalf, their own behalf, and move forward and make decisions and do things, that don't always have to be, cycled through, management. We're all busy people. We've hired experts, do what you need to do.
Love it. Well, you survived, and the last one's the softball of how can people get in touch with you, and how can people stay connected?
I would definitely say feel free to look for my profile on LinkedIn. I can always, put that profile out there. Always encouraging people to check out our website, matchboxdesigngroup.com. I really hope within probably the next couple months, we should actually be launching a new web presence, which will be really cool. And then we also have a podcast as well. And Dan, Chris, I look forward to hopefully having you both on, that podcast too. It's Mix and Matchbox. And right now we're doing a series of episodes solely dedicated to doing bank and credit union sort of oriented content. So definitely we have a lot of cool episodes that are coming up with, I guess, the VP of Sales for Mantle, somebody who's at Savista Bank, Autumn Jose. She's actually got some really cool information about Social Stars, some of the programs they do to engage their branch members. So anyway, lots of good content hopefully coming up on that. And definitely you guys are awesome and have a ton of knowledge, and I would just absolutely be more than happy to have you guys come share that on that podcast too. But yeah, those are the ways to get in touch.
Great. Well, we'll link out to all those in the show notes, and well, thanks for appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on and sharing some knowledge here. I think it's great to just get the more perspectives we can get, the more ways of sharing, how valuable like websites and, different aspects of customer interaction and customer experience. It's just great to get your perspective. So
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you guys. I really appreciate being here. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, definitely. I'll really hopefully look forward to more great conversations, but this was a lot of fun. Thank you guys.
Yeah. More to come, Brent. Really great to have you. Thanks so much for your time today.
Great. Thanks.
All right. Everybody can check us out and listen to this episode with Brent on bankmarketingshow.com. Reach out to Dan and I anytime for resources there as well. And we appreciate everybody for being here with us today.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.